blood sugar is so amazing because you can do a short checklist of general things that you can eat that support blood sugar balance, that regulate hunger hormones, that get you essentially what you need, like essential nutrients from your food, essential amino acids, essential fatty acids, minerals, like vitamins, prebiotics, and fibers that feed your gut microbiome. Like what you really need is very simple.
What's up, friend? Welcome back to The Best Medicine. It's Angie. Today we chat with celebrity nutritionist, wellness expert, and the blood sugar queen herself, Kelly LeVeque. I am geeking out over this episode. Grab a pen and paper and please geek out with me because today we dive deep into why protein is so important for your metabolism, fertility, the health benefits of breastfeeding, balancing your blood sugar for energy, fat loss, the supplements you actually need to be taking. And I personally love this episode, not only because I freaking love Kelly so much. I think she's such an amazing human, mother, wife, business owner, but balancing my blood sugar has been such a huge focus of mine this last year to really improve my ADHD, to really improve my focus, and to also make sure that I'm keeping my hormones balanced so I can stay fertile. So balancing blood sugar has been such a huge part of my journey, and I believe in it so deeply, and I know that it is so important for anything that you want to achieve when it comes to your wellness. So I have a feeling that you're going to love Kelly just as much as I do. She is total #mom goals. And we dive right into this conversation. We pressed record right when she came over. So you're going to be like a little fly on the wall hearing us dive into the health benefits of breastfeeding and Kelly sharing her perspective on how she keeps her kids healthy. So if you dig this episode, let us know on social at Angie Lee Show and at Be Well by Kelly. And as always, check the show notes for any references for episodes like this that are super jam-packed with a lot of tangible action steps that you can take, products, books, resources, things like that. We will always make sure to link them in the show notes for you. So go check that out and let's dive in.
Like a lot of the nutrients that you're giving to your child are more concentrated in the earlier months and year of breastfeeding. And as they get older, I'm not delivering him the same nutrient density. And also the profile of nutrients, macronutrients throughout the day changes. So it's more carbohydrate sources in the morning, and then my body gives him more fat at night. So it's like different per feed, time of the day, and they actually are now showing that there are chemicals in your baby's saliva that deliver messages of what their body needs. So there's a two-way communication in breastfeeding that scientists have now discovered. So it's magic.
Yeah.
And it's supply and demand, which I think is fascinating. No, it's literally supply and demand, because if she doesn't keep telling her boobs, hey, we make this food, we make this milk, then it stops, but then your baby needs it. But the more, right, it's a cyclical nature of supply and demand. Like you have to, that's why even if your baby's not up in the middle of the night, you still have to pump to get it going. Some women do, right?
To keep their supply high.
Keep the supply high.
Yeah. And I think there's also this, we don't really know how much we're getting. Like a woman will breastfeed and a baby is way more efficient at getting milk out of a boob or a nipple and then a pump, then an electrical pump. So an electrical pump, you might hook yourself up to a pump and get 3 ounces per boob and be like, oh my gosh, she's supposed to be having, like I'm not going to be able to keep up with what they need if I'm only producing 6 ounces and my child needs 8, so that can stress moms out a lot. But you just have to trust that your baby is getting what your baby needs. No, it's just there's a lot more trust that I have the second time around than I did with Sebastian, my oldest, because I was pumping a lot more with him. And so you can pump and then you can create oversupply. And then the baby has a hard time drinking because you have an abundance of milk and then it comes out at a faster flow rate that they might not be prepared for. Yeah. There's so many things when it comes to breastfeeding, and it can be really discouraging for moms, but my advice is always try to stick it out and learn the science behind it to motivate you to do it. And hey, if it's messing with your mental health, then you have to pull the ripcord and decide what other food source you want to give your children.
Do we believe that, because you're thinking about mental health with breastfeeding, is there any correlation or data to support that if you're very stressed, maybe you have heightened cortisol or other hormones, that'll find its way into the bloodstream, into the milk, and maybe into the baby system?
Yeah. I am positive that stress affects supply. So I'll give you an example. Like, I had a really traumatic birth with my first son, and he was whisked away in an ambulance to Children's Hospital Los Angeles when he was born, and I had to stay at St. John's in Santa Monica. And the nurse told me, she's like, I need you to start hand expressing. We're going to get you a pump. I want you to try and like bring your milk in. Like, your baby's not here. This was a really traumatic event. In 50% of cases, like half the time, like in this type of situation, I want to prepare you that like your milk may never come in.
Wow.
And so, I was like, oh, you better, like I was really determined. I was obviously like in a lot of going through trauma at that, and super shocked and in a state of shock at that moment. My milk did come in. It was something for me that, even though we had this traumatic start and he was in the NICU for 2 weeks, that was like my way. Like, we all have ways of making up for it or feeling like we're healing. And breastfeeding for me with my first was like a really healing experience. And we did it, we breastfed for 18 months, and it was really special because he was in the NICU. He had TPN nutrition, which means he was given nutrition via tube. He wasn't allowed to have my milk. Like, he was put on antibiotics after 41 and a half amazing weeks of having a really active, healthy, no nausea type of pregnancy. And I think, sometimes I think that's, I don't want to say karma or the world, or like, it is good to be able to do hard things and get through hard things. And that was our bump in the road. And, with every single bump, you're like, okay, what's the silver lining? What did I learn? What do I want next time? What can I do to heal from that? And so breastfeeding for us is like, not only is it amazing when it comes to the nutrition that you're able to directly provide your child, vitamin D, choline, iron, like all of it, all the amino acids that they need to grow. And but it's really special bonding. There's an amazing amount of oxytocin that you get hit with every time you breastfeed. Like, it's my favorite high.
Wow.
I've heard this. My friends are like, dude, it's the craziest feeling when you birth a child, like this rush of oxytocin. They say it's the one time in a woman's life that she is going to feel the most oxytocin she will ever feel. And they say it's equivalent to like a trip.
Yeah, it is a really,
love is just abundant.
It's really special. It's really, really, really special. And I tell Bash all the time, Sebastian, he goes by Bash. I'm like, your dad used to think my favorite day ever was the day we got married. And it might be just slightly second now, because my favorite day was like the day I became a mom. Like, It's really, even though we had like it was a horrible day and a beautiful day at the same time, but I still remember like the second he hit my chest. It was there for 2 seconds, but I like cannot, like, I have a vivid picture like in my brain of what that moment was. It's really crazy.
It's like a love you didn't even know existed.
I mean, yeah.
That's so crazy. It's
so
crazy.
You have 2 boys now?
Yeah. We're his rowdy
so
house,
cute.
man.
Yeah.
I'll probably have I'd love to have 4 kids. I've negotiated 3. I feel like I'm
Well done.
a football draft or a nice romantic dinner away from maybe getting a 4th.
Okay. All right.
Just depends when the timing is right. See if I can.
What if you had 4 boys? That would be crazy.
I think it'd be awesome.
That'd be so fun.
It's just, boys love their moms, and it is crazy in the beginning. Like, the takedowns, like my 3.5-year-old is like, I love you, Johson, but we'll run across the family room and take him down, and I'm like, yeah. Oh my God, I need an ER punch card. Like, I know I'm gonna have like broken arms, broken faces, stitches.
Yeah.
But there's so much love and there's so much happy energy that it's just really special.
That's what boys do, though. They wrestle. Boys are supposed to
For
do
sure.
that. And moms freak out. And I'm like, I think they're supposed to be fighting right now. Like, let them be wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even growing up for us, like, we were always outside, always playing, always wrestling, always had scrapes and bruises. Like, I was trying to eat worms. I actually had this thing. My mom used to babysit for the kids. And up until I was like 8 years old, I didn't want to wear clothes.
Yeah.
So I would there'd be home videos of me naked and my mom being like, Mike, put your clothes on. And then I put clothes on, and then 2 minutes later, the camera would pan over and they'd be off again. And I would just be like running around the backyard naked. I had this like weird thing, but it's like nowadays, kids you stick them in front of iPhones, in front of iPads, the games. Yeah. I'm sure listen, I'm not a parent, so I don't want to judge, and it's probably so much easier to do that. But are you getting to that age now with your 3.5-year-old to where they want to start looking at screens, and how do you kind of manage that?
Yeah, screen time is hard. There's a Instagram account, I'll give them a shout out. They've been on my podcast, TechWise Littles, and they're distilling down the science coming out around screen time and kids. And, you just kind of can look at someone like Andrew Huberman, who's sharing all the research on light and how that impacts sleep, mood, like all of it, circadian rhythm. For me, I am not a no screens at all mom. There are people who have like no TVs in their house. We have a television, and Sebastian gets cartoons on the weekends for 45 minutes max. And so it is like very difficult when we go to a restaurant. I mean, to the point where sometimes Chris is like, it's not fun. And I'm like, I get that it's not fun, but it's not going to be fun until we do it, get good at it, and everyone can have a conversation and hang out. And if it's not now, then like, let's do takeout of La Serena Grill and take it to the beach across the street, and we'll have a family picnic and we'll have Sandy tacos. That's just how we're going to do it. But it gets harder and harder. Like his friends now are getting iPads. He's 3.5. That's really young,
That's crazy.
We didn't do TV with him until he was 18 months old.
Okay.
At all. And then it was like really slow TV shows like Sesame Street. And that's where experts like, the occupational therapist and the people that I recommended, TechWise Littles, where you can take their course or look at their information and understand, okay, what are the list of television shows that don't have a lot of background noise and fast moving cartoons that are hard to follow. We want a YouTube style video that's like, I'm playing at a play gym at a park, and here's me pouring sand from one bucket to the next. The bucket is blue, the bucket is red. Like they're learning something. It's educational, but maybe the guy's a little bit zany.
Yeah.
And creepy.
Yeah. Slightly creepy. Exactly.
They're always creepy, like Blue's Clues. That Steve guy, I don't trust him. Yeah. I don't trust him with my kids.
Yeah.
What is he doing all day?
Hanging
out on his couch, and he's like, ooh, the mail's here. Ooh, mail time. You're like, you're a creep.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of one of those things where I want my kids outside. Like, I want my kids outside. I want to be playing and getting dirty. I want them bored, because when they're bored, that's when we get creative. Less is more.
Yeah.
More like open-ended play, even like when it comes to choosing a toy. Like, is it a magnetile or a block, or is it this one toy that's played this one exact way? Like, all the magnetiles and blocks allow them to like really be like, I'm building an airport. I'm building a rocket. I'm, I don't know. I'm building a tunnel for my train. That's a totally different toy, but now the Brio is now connected to the magnetile, and now we're really, really learning and playing and exploring and creating. And so but I'm telling you, there's a science to everything now, where I'm like, let's talk about blood sugar. Oh my gosh, I'm a parent now. I need to know about the science of screen time. I need to know the science of toys. And that's where I am not the expert, but I really lean on experts, bring them on my podcast, and try to just stay up to date on stuff so that I can make informed decisions. I think that's the most important thing. You will constantly change as a parent, like even some of the rules that you have, like screen time on the weekends right now works. It may become something where it becomes an addiction, where he like cares so much about it because he only gets it on the weekends, that I may sprinkle it in a little bit more, or, there's like different schools of thought when it comes to it. I just don't want him to care about screens. I want him to like other things more. And so how do I cultivate that?
Yeah.
I play with him. I watch screen time with him. It's not like a babysitter.
Yeah. I'm curious about nutrition. Obviously, you're a nutritionist and you have an amazing platform, and that's an area you're an expert in. especially when kids are growing up. I just think about what we ate when we were growing up, and not to blame my mom and dad. They just didn't really know any better.
Lots of Taco Bell.
Also, I don't think we had enough money.
Taco Bell's better than Del Taco.
Oh, good. We're healthy. We're fine.
Look at that. That's a pro tip right there.
Everyone listening, write that down.
But what are you doing with your son now, who's like 3.5, and how do you plan on like feeding them? Because kids don't like vegetables. Kids don't like carrots, right? So once again, I'm not a parent, but just wondering kind of what your mindset is now with all the tools that you now have with the next maybe 5-10 years with nutrition for them.
Well, so first of all, I want to break down that belief, because that's a limiting belief as a parent if you think your kids don't like carrots. So we have to totally get rid of all the beliefs that kids don't like vegetables, they don't like bitter, they don't like spicy, they don't like umami. They do. And I actually wrote a whole course on introducing food to kids, whether you're breast milk or formula, but really at the 6-month mark, there's something called a flavor window between 6 months and 18 months where introducing a variety of foods, and not only allergens, but a variety of flavors of foods and textures of foods, increases acceptance their entire life.
Biodiversity.
It literally, I am talking about the diversity of plant-based foods, from picking fennel to like my 3.5-year-old will eat sauerkraut out of a jar in the kitchen tower. And that's because at 7 months old, I introduced those flavors to him. I didn't think oh, he's not going to like this. And I did that only because I looked at the research to write this course. But it's modeling and exposure and repetition that gets kids eating food. So exposure counts for everything. Like, take them to the farm, the farmer's market, the grocery store. I teach with food. So we count in the kitchen. We're counting blueberries. What color are they? How small are they? Small or big? Let's put blueberries, raspberries, and strawberries in order of size, color, shape, taste. They each have like their own plastic kitchen knives and cutting boards. So what happens is in that flavor window between 6 months and 18 months, acceptance happens in 3 to 5 introductions. After that flavor window, it multiplies exponentially. It can be 20, 25 introductions before a kid likes a food. And it's also important that they're not being forced. So we have this period of time between 6 and 18 months where it's not their sole source of nutrition. They have breast milk or formula. It's not just for fun though either. It's really like improving their microbiome. They are absorbing these nutrients. They are getting nutrient density from this, but it is one of these special times where if we can get serious about introducing these foods, then they're going to like them longer. And even if they have a picky period in time where they were just asserting self-control or independence, like I'm not going to eat this, I'm not going to eat that, they come back around to loving those foods that they originally ate in that toddler period of time. So the flavor window is a research term for that period of time for kids.
That's really interesting. That is a limiting belief. I just assumed right away that kids wouldn't eat carrots, wouldn't eat broccoli, all that kind of stuff. And that's super interesting if you introduce that early enough, and how many times it takes, how it can start to get into their mindset.
Think about us as adults too. I mean, like, my husband doesn't like sushi, but I'll tell you, like, if he ate it enough, he probably would like it. But it may be closer to 20 or 30 times before he really gravitates towards wanting to go to dinner at a sushi restaurant. But if, say, for example, he was introduced to sushi or raw fish in that like younger age, maybe around like 16 to 18 months, and was given a couple of rolls as a kid, it'd be totally different. Something he loves is curry. His mom made curry for him growing up all the time. It was just one of the meals that their family made. So I always encourage, and in the course and with the moms that I've worked with, I really encourage like major diversity in the types of foods that you're eating and how you can get your kids involved. And something super important too when it comes to vegetables specifically, there was a study that showed that the dad has more influence than the mom when it comes to sitting at the family table. And a child will more likely emulate their father in their healthy eating, but that modeling and exposure and sitting down at the table as a family is super, super important. But in a family where there's a mom and a dad, the dad has more influence over the child's eating. Wow. So I tell Chris, who, we eat at 5:30. That's really early for us when you think about the time of day, especially if he's staying up till like let's say Chris stays up till 10:30 or 11, that's a really early dinner. And he really likes to rest and digest. He wants to eat in calm and peace.
I like that.
There's 3 minutes where our children are sitting at the table and eating their dinner. So our compromise is he sits down and plates the veggies or the side salad that I've made. And he just eats the veggies in front of them. And then he can have his meat and potatoes or whatever else I've made and whatever else he needs. Like, he can eat after bedtime, but I want him to sit at the table with us and I want him to model that behavior. And I just told him the research and he's on board.
Yeah.
You know?
He's like, this spinach is so yummy. I'm so cool. Look at me eating this.
So you're saying you can train your husband the exact same way that you're training your kids.
I mean, my Bash asked to be my sous chef. Like, I've asked him, will you be my sous chef? Will you be my sous chef? Now he's like, can I be your sous chef? He'll be like playing in the backyard. He can see me through the kitchen window.
So
and he's
cute.
like, what are you cutting? And I'm like, come on in, bud. You can cut. And now I'm like giving him sharper knives. And I'm like, he's 3.5 and he's using like a chef's knife. But I've seen him use the plastic knives enough to know that like he can handle this. And I'm right there the whole time. So it's okay. But yeah, it's
what
crazy.
a cool mom. Everybody, Kelly's the best mom. You sound like the most fun mom.
I mean, I do really try to have fun. I definitely have like the mom guilt that most mom has for things that I'm like, shoot, I shouldn't have done this or I shouldn't have done that. And what, you know, I mean, but this is my space. Like, food is my space. I naturally gravitated towards bringing my kids into my world, which no matter what you do, like if you're really interested in, I don't know, nature and like hiking and nature bathing, your kids are going to grow up being obsessed with that too. Like, they want to be just like you in a lot of ways for so many years. And so there's this really amazing, and you're so much more present in the things that you love. So if they're like, come play Duplos, you're like, cool, I made a cool tower. Duplos are really fun. Coloring's really fun. Don't get me wrong. Like, I actually really love building and coloring, but getting Bash in the kitchen and being like, let's make this cool, interesting recipe. And he's helping me. And then I see him not only pick those veggies at the ecology center, our little farm stand, or, and cut them. And then I'll let him move his kitchen tower to actually saute something and then see him like eat it right out of the pan. I'm like,
that's awesome.
This is my space. This is my place. I feel like I've done my part. And then if I'm doing that and we go to a birthday party and it's like, you know, Mom, can I have like the cupcake or the Cheetos? I'm not the mom who's like, no, because I don't want to create those type of food rules either.
Because then he would want it more, right?
Yeah, I don't want off limit things for him. I want him to love and enjoy whole foods and have like a foundation of nutrition from home, so that I personally as a parent have flexibility saying, hey, this is like 10 or 15% of the food you eat, or you know, on a weekend or at a school event or something, then I don't feel bad about it.
Yeah. I'm curious, and I know a lot of the listeners are very curious about fertility. It's a hot thing right now. It's also very controversial, I know, because everyone has their theory on what's going on, what works and what doesn't. But for men and women, what have you seen be helpful? What do you think is going on right now as far as a lot of people are struggling with it? I'm just so fascinated by it and so curious about it, because I know there's so much going on. And I personally think it's because we live in a really toxic world. And if you don't take control of that as far as your products and what you're using, we're getting a lot of these endocrine disruptors, and stress is really high. And I don't know. I also wonder if social media now, you hear more experiences than you would hear. So I also wonder if maybe it isn't bigger than it used to be of an issue. We just hear about it more because now we have the internet. I don't know.
Infertility is definitely on the rise. We have seen those numbers go up. I think if we knew exactly what was causing it, that person or that company would make boatloads of money. Yeah. But you did hit one of the nails in this equation on the head, which is endocrine disrupting chemicals. If something's acting like estrogen in the body, it is going to have an effect on our fertility. It's going to have an effect on sperm count. It's going to have an effect on ovulation. It's going to have an effect on all of that. So that is a major player, and we can't like discount that. So you did hit the nail on the head there when it comes to cleaning supplies, self-care, like anything you're putting on your body, down to even some foods that can be estrogenic for some people if they're having fertility issues. there is Anthony, I think it's Anthony J, and I'll get you the name, but he wrote a book, Estronation. Definitely something to check out and a book to read. But fertility also, I mean, we have major blood sugar dysregulation, and we have certain diseases like polycystic ovarian syndrome that is one of the number one causes of miscarriage or infertility in young women. We also have low thyroid, which plays a role in having miscarriages. So it's hard. 1 in 3 pregnancies after the age of 35 end in miscarriage. So
it's crazy because that's still so young. Mm-hmm. It's so funny. I feel like that data needs to be updated a little bit because we live so much longer now. So it's funny when they tell women that a geriatric pregnancy is 35.
Yeah, my first pregnancy was geriatric.
I'm like, geriatric? I'm thinking of a grandma who's like,
yeah.
where's
They
my
definitely
cane?
need to move that. They need to change that.
Where's my cane? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm 35. Like, that word is so disempowering.
It
to
is.
so many women. Like, I'm 3 years away from that. I better.
You're a baby, sister.
I thought it was a fetus, but am I a geriatric fetus or which one am I? I don't know. I don't know how to feel. Am I old? Am I young?
You're old.
You know what? I think it's really important that no matter what age you are, if someone feels any kind of anxiety about their fertility, that they go get blood work done. Like that they look into their fertility, because those are things you can do. Modern Fertility is a great company to check out. Like there are ways that you can get these tests done on your own without a doctor. So,
what would I look for? Like thyroid?
Yeah, you want thyroid levels, you want iron levels, you want probably like a AMH level. You want to understand, like, do I have any glaring issues here? And that would be the best way to figure out, a little snapshot of how you're doing. And then you can make a strategic decision. Like I have had women do egg retrievals at a younger age because their numbers weren't great, or so it just depends on the person.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm always telling Mike and Clay to switch their deodorants and all of their products to non-toxic. And I know men initially are like, why would I do this? Why would I have aluminum-free or paraben-free deodorant? But it's so important. And Clay is like 98% non-toxic now. And I try to have every product be non-toxic because especially women, makeup, shampoo, conditioner, body wash. By the end of the day, you've put thousands of things into your skin.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost like people who think it's silly. I'm like, your skin is the largest organ in your body. This isn't silly. You're literally drenching yourself in these toxins, and then we expect to feel good and to perform well and to reproduce. And so I get mad at the companies that are making these toxic beauty products for women.
Yeah.
It's like, shit, there are so many of them.
Yeah. Well, I was actually going to ask that question too, because I'm super curious as you're at the grocery store. Are there certain things you should look for? We talked about endocrine disruptors, and I don't think I'm taking Schmidt's. Is that the non-toxic
Yeah,
deodorant?
you've used Schmidt's. I think Primally Pure. I love Primally Pure. Their stuff's really clean. I think you use Schmidt's now, right?
Is there anything that, like, for me, just learning this, should kind of look for when I'm looking at body wash, deodorant, even soap?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because anything that is water-based is going to have preservatives, and preservatives are something you want to avoid. So like, for example, like a Dr. Bronner's is an oil-based cleanser. That's not going to have the preservatives in it. Anytime you use an oil-based, it's like a dry body oil instead of a lotion, you're going to have that same no preservatives. Another thing to look at is fragrances, because a lot of times fragrance, when they're adding fragrance, it's actually a formulation of synthetic fragrances and phthalates or parabens that can like hold on. And I don't know the exact science of what is in a fragrance, but I believe it's a phthalate, but it binds that synthetic fragrance so it lasts longer. So fragrance is one of those things where they can hide things under that term fragrance. So I always say look for essential oil blended. If you want a fragrance that smells like lavender, it smells like sandalwood, you should see sandalwood, you shouldn't see fragrance. There are companies that are doing fragrance right, but that would need to be, that company would need to disclose, like, we're using a fragrance house that doesn't share the formulation, because those are proprietary formulations, but that can stand behind it. And if people ask, present like a COA or something.
Yeah.
Talk to us about blood sugar. You are the blood sugar queen.
Okay, finally something I'm like feel like okay. Fertility, like I know it's on the infertility is on the rise, and I know so many things that point to that. But blood sugar's my jam.
Yeah, but
I feel blood sugar.
I feel like they're correlated though. I'm
they are
hearing
totally
a lot about
they
it.
are totally correlated, and it is a little bit heartbreaking. But blood sugar does play a major role. I think the biggest lever you can pull in your life when it comes to anything, when it comes to wellness, is like what you eat, how you sleep, and where and how you move. It's like the simple stuff our grandparents did. And so when it comes to nutrition, for me, teaching blood sugar balance was key for so many of my clients, because maybe they got stuck in counting calories or counting macros or getting on a diet, and they started to have fears around food. Blood sugar is so amazing because you can do a short checklist of general things that you can eat that support blood sugar balance, that regulate hunger hormones, that get you essentially what you need, like essential nutrients from your food, essential amino acids, essential fatty acids, minerals like vitamins, prebiotics, and fibers that feed your gut microbiome. Like what you really need is very simple.
Hey guys, it's Mike here. As many of you know, sleep is one of the most overlooked yet important factors in our health and recovery. If you've been dealing with difficulty falling asleep and waking up tired and groggy after binging Game of Thrones or Love is Blind all night because you can't sleep, I've got you. We developed an incredibly tasty Sleepy Gummy line that has some amazing all-natural powerhouse ingredients in it. Now, some of the ingredients in the gummy are organically grown CBD and CBN. CBN, known as cannabinol, is a compound extracted from hemp that's non-psychoactive. Don't worry, Mom, it won't get you high. But it contains powerful, relaxing properties known to improve the quality of REM sleep, and we all need more of that. We've also got myrcene in there. It's a natural compound found in plants that promotes a calming, sedative effect to help you fall asleep faster. And we've also got melatonin, another natural occurring hormone that regulates the sleep-wake cycle, helps you fall asleep faster, and stay asleep longer. So these are just a few of the ingredients packed in this gummy, but trust me, this is our best-selling product for a reason, guys. I can't tell you how many people come up to me or DM me telling me about how Sleepy changed their life. You've got to try this out. And exclusive to the Best Medicine podcast listeners, we're offering a 20% off code on Sleepy Gummies and all Soul CBD products. Just use the code TBM and make sure to let us know what you think. We've got over 6,000 five-star reviews now, and I'm proud of the quality and efficacy of our products. So go use code TBM at mysoulcbd.com and enjoy.
Protein, fat, and so I created a little mini list. Protein, fat, fiber, and greens is what I call the Fab Four. It supports blood sugar balance. So someone could be plant-based, or they could be paleo, or they could just need to be gluten-free for something, or have SIBO. Like you could have a serious diagnosis to just wanting to feel a little bit more energetic, and putting specific things on your plate, those macronutrients, protein and fat. And then the fiber and greens piece is like, where are your vegetables deep in color? Where are your fiber sources? What that does is it allows for that, not only those nutrients to be absorbed into your body and to get those essential nutrients, but it elongates your blood sugar curve. And I can explain by explaining what turns to glucose. So we know that carbohydrates turn to glucose, sugars and starches, right? Mm-hmm. I always tell Mike, if I was sitting down with a client to explain this in a very simple way, I use emojis. So I'd say, okay, like let's say you just had that little piece of toast emoji. You ate your toast for breakfast, you chewed it, you got some salivary amylase in there, an enzyme, it's breaking it down, drops into your stomach, hydrochloric acid goes into your intestines, enzymes, brush border enzymes, you got microbes in there fermenting it, but then it's going to make its way through your epithelial lining, right? And it is going to end up in your bloodstream. So picture that little toast emoji then just floating in your bloodstream. So they're floating around in there, and the more you eat, the more little emojis end up in your bloodstream, and your blood sugar is going up and up and up. So what has to happen is your pancreas has to release insulin, and insulin's going to go grab that toast emoji and put it away in a cell. So it's going to store it as a long chain of glycogen in your liver, a long chain of glycogen in your muscles. So if you're an athlete, carbo loading, that's what you were doing. You were taking all those little toasts, putting them in a little chain inside your muscles so you would have energy. Or the ability to create ATP from glucose, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, like I can I can make energy from this. What happens is our blood sugar goes up, insulin's released, our blood sugar comes down. The process of blood sugar going up and coming down on average is 3 hours. So we're up for 90 minutes, we're down for 90 minutes. Look at old science that said eat 5 to 6 small meals a day to balance your blood sugar. Why? Well, you have breakfast at 6 a.m., you're hungry at 9, have a snack. You're up and down, have lunch, you're up and down. But that's like a Band-Aid on a crash. Oh, we'll just send you right back up. We'll just send you right back up. But the problem over time is that if we're not super active and burning away stored glycogen, using up those little bits of toast in our muscles, then we build up over time. And our fasting glucose then maybe goes from a 75 or a 78 to an 85 to a 90 to a 95 to 100. And then we have fasting blood sugars in the pre-diabetes range, and then we have them in the diabetic range, and then we have full-blown type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome. We have increased chances for Alzheimer's, polycystic ovarian syndrome. We have an increased chance for heart disease. Like, it all kind of compounds on itself over time. So how can we eat a meal that doesn't create this massive surge and massive crash, that actually creates an elongated curve? And so we have to think about the things that don't do that don't end up going down that process. And that is proteins, right? Minimal to no effect on blood sugar. We do have the ability to create gluconeogenesis, create sugar from proteins. That is a process that we can, in our bodies, have happen. But generally speaking, protein and it breaks down to amino acids. They make everything from our hormones, our neurotransmitters, every cell in our body. Like, it's the best at creating satiety in our body. So thinking of sitting down and having a piece of steak or, a piece of salmon versus sitting down and having a bowl of cereal, those are totally two different things. Cereal is an acellular carbohydrate. It's going to there's no fiber there, really. It's going to be a massive blood sugar surge. There's not a lot of protein. It's a different experience than sitting down to a meal, standing up and being like, oh, I'm good. Like, I feel great. I feel satisfied. So essential amino acids. And then you think about like fat. How does fat work? Fat has no effect on blood sugar. It's broken down to fatty acids. What fat does when we eat fat with a meal is it slows down digestion. So it slows down the release of sugar and starches into our bloodstream. It slows down the digestion of our meal. Protein does the same thing. So when you're like, people will say, have a little almond butter with your apple, right? What's happening there? Like, the apple has fiber that's wrapping up the sugars in. It's not drinking apple juice. It's a whole apple, right? It's a cellular carbohydrate. The fiber cell is intact. So then you put a little fat and protein and fiber on top of it with a nut butter, and you're slowing down the digestion of that apple. You're elongating that blood sugar curve. And so when I tell clients, okay, look for protein, fat, and fiber and greens on your plate, what I'm looking for is like, do you have a source of protein? Do you have a little bit of healthy fat? Is it, in a yolk or in a salmon? Are you adding olive oil somewhere? Are you adding avocado? All that's going to create the satiety that I want and slow the digestion to elongate the blood sugar curve. And then the fiber and greens piece is, where's the color? Where's the vegetable? For some people, it looks like I'm having a huge bowl of salad with all the leftover roasted veggies from the night before. And for other clients, it's like they're having a few pieces of asparagus with their steak. They're feeling good, and that sustains them. And so there's a little bio-individuality when it comes to what is the bigger portion for specific clients. On average, I have clients who are suboptimally eating protein, so they feel hungrier. They don't get this elongation of the blood sugar curve for 4 to 6 hours. I'd rather have a client eat to satiety, feel really good, get everything that they need from their food, the nutrients, the vitamins, all of those macros, and then get to their next meal feeling like, oh, I'm kind of hungry. I'm not crashing, starving, hungry. Where's the pantry? Where's the snacks? I need something crunchy, crispy, because a lot of times that process is draining emotionally. The crash makes us feel a little out of control, a little anxious, a little irritable. Sometimes it's hard to concentrate. If let's say you had grabbed something like a baked good at a coffee shop and that was the only thing you ate, it's that blip and that crash that really, really can be a deterrent for people eating the way they want to eat or like following through with their goals. Part of my job is to know the science of blood sugar to support my clients to eat a specific way and meet goals and feel their best. But ultimately, it's having people do something so that they could get out of their own way the rest of the time, and that when they get to that next meal, they aren't in such a deprivation place or a crashing place that they can easily make the choice that they want to make without feeling bad or guilty about, well, I was just so hungry, so I just grabbed whatever was in the cabinet. Because we've all been there. Yeah. We've all been there where you're like, I just need a bar or something. I didn't. But so I fuel people. The first meal of the day is the most important. And I'm saying whenever you break your fast, I mean, I like that women don't wait too long. Like a 2 p.m. window can be tough on people and backfire late night, late afternoon crashes, late night overeating, obsessive thoughts about food. But somewhere in that, you wake up at 6 a.m., somewhere between like 7, an hour after wake up, and let's say noon, or even if it depends on your wake up time, right? If someone wakes up at 9, 1 might be totally fine for them. But look at your wake up window. Like, I think over 6 hours can be actually a stress inducing for women, and backfire when it comes to blood sugar regulation and control of food choices.
Yeah. Wow.
It's interesting that all of what you talked about is a lot of what I went through as an athlete, and especially my sport. I was a professional fighter, so it's all about cutting weight, and even the carbo loading. I think of that scene from The Office when Michael Scott, before the run, like eats a bunch of linguine, and he's like, I'm carbo loading. And then later on he gets cramps and like throws up and everything. Yeah. I was under the impression early in my career as well that I needed a carbo load, so we'd have a weigh-in, and then 24 hours later I'd be in the ring and compete. I'd put on 10 to 12 pounds in between that. And that's and we can go down that rabbit hole. I definitely think I have some PTSD when it comes to food, to where I'm very nervous about it from cutting so much weight throughout my career with 22 fights. But early in my career, what I would do is I would carbo load after the weight cut before the fight, and I'd find myself being very lethargic, even hopping in the ring, and I would eat too many carbs. And I thought, okay, I'm going to have a huge bowl of pasta the night before. I'm going to eat pasta the day of, because usually we'd fight at night. And over time, I started, working with top nutritionists. I'm blessed to have a good buddy of mine. His name's Andy Galpin, in my corner for a couple of my title fights. And they started teaching me to increase my proteins and increase my fats. And it was incredible what happened. All of a sudden I was like, oh, I don't need a shitload of carbohydrates to be sustained and keep working out. And all of a sudden my crashes were lower. I could still cut a lot of weight. It's incredible when you go really heavy on fats, for me personally, fats and proteins, how much weight I would cut. But I no longer had to kind of carbo load. So I'm curious of people with hypoglycemia, particularly. Is that something, because I have hypoglycemia, is that something where you recommend to really start increasing proteins and fats and kind of focusing on that? Because I think fat especially has been like demonized in our culture over the years, although I think that narrative is starting to change.
Yeah, that narrative is definitely starting to change. I do feel like proteins are the best at supporting blood sugar balance. Like, even more than fat, the fact that fat can slow something down is great, but replacing that certain portion of your meal, certain carbohydrate portion of your meal with more proteins are just slower to digest, and they're really satisfying, and they slow the whole process down. So I feel like wonderful that Andy was able to support you in getting those crashes under control, because they are really depleting of energy. When I see a client come to me and I maybe have a 4 p.m. meeting with someone and they have been on that blood sugar roller coaster all day and they feel frazzled and they have low energy and high cravings, and they roll into dinner and maybe like coming home from work, or maybe they have young kids, whatever it is, it's where they self-soothe, and there's more self-soothing with food at the end of a day like that, because you're tired. And so your body, a lot of us, when we're tired, when we're stressed, when we're dehydrated, we reach for food before we go like, what's the real problem here? Like, how do I manage this stress? Do I need to just go to bed early tonight? Because a lot of us have very little personal time. So people protect and prioritize that personal time after the workday is over, and they want to eke as much out of it as they can. And that becomes a period of time where there's an excessive amount of eating to self-soothe, to calm our bodies. A lot of us just did that as kids. So I'm not here to demonize it. I mean, like, I can't tell you the amount of times like my parents would go to Costco and I would be like, and I'm making the whole bag of taquitos. Like, it is so real in our culture. And so just opening up the conversation that, like, it is really normal to feel stressed out and need to send an email and go like, what can I have a snack? I'm definitely needing a snack right now. Or you did send that email and you've been putting it off for a couple of days. Ooh, I'm going to reward myself with something. Like, there are so many triggers for food that aren't even food related. When we think about food, it's like thinking about food, seeing food, smelling food, all of it. Like, any visual or mental input of like a thought of food will make you want food. And so that's hard, like, to constantly be inundated with food and then have it also be your own like therapy or your own way to like self-soothe.
So if someone listening right now, they may be thinking to themselves, how much protein should I have? Is that generally, do you usually, when you're working with clients, like, I'm 200 pounds, should I have a certain amount of grams of protein, or how are you?
Yeah, I would say on average, I work more with women than I do with men. I have actually I've worked with a couple of NFL football players too, but for someone of your size, I would say like a gram per pound of body mass is like, it depends on how active you are, but 0.75 for women, like, is where I'm at. Like, if you, 100 because it's an easy weight, and I can say 75 grams a day. I don't know very many women who are 100 pounds, let's be honest, like maybe like a fifth grader.
Who's over 12.
So maybe twice that, you're like 100 and, like 130 or 40 pounds. You're like, okay, like, I'd like you to hit 100 grams of protein a day. 90 to 100 grams is not,
okay.
It's effort. It's effort for people, but the minute I see them do that, we have energy, blood sugar balance hits. Even like people who deal with chronic constipation, a lot of times they're under eating protein. And when your body, you have nerves that innervate your gut looking for essential amino acids and essential fatty acids. There are parts of your body that know how essential and important this stuff is. And if we know that stress can slow down peristalsis or the movement of your bowels, we also know when you're pregnant that peristalsis slows down to absorb as many nutrients as possible. How do we keep the pace? We eat nutrient-dense foods and we eat what we need. So a lot of times I think people are under eating, maybe not calorically, but nutritionally.
Yeah. I've noticed for me as well that with ADHD, it helps tremendously, stabilizing blood sugar. And I know a lot of moms will DM me and say, oh, my kid is eating a ton of crackers and cookies and is making their ADHD worse. And I'm like, yeah, of course it is. They're just on a blood sugar spike. And so then I guess the parents then need to really look at their pantry and start having the kids up their protein and their fat, right?
Well, there was actually a recall study that was done in young children, and it looked at reading them a story and asking them to recite what they learned about that story 30 minutes later. And they looked at two different diets. They looked at a high carbohydrate, more processed and sugary diet, and they looked at a whole food diet, included proteins and like whole food carbohydrates, fruits, maybe even like rice, grains, potatoes. And there was statistically significant differences in the children's ability to recall that story when they had a processed and high sugar diet. That is absolutely real. A major recommendation I have for parents who are having kids is the book Sugar Proof. I've had Dr. Gran and Emily on my podcast, amazing work out of USC, just looking at recall, looking at behavior, looking at overall health. And, it's unfortunate, but non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is a major issue in young kids based on liquid sugar intake. This is from sports drinks, juices, and sodas. And so they are really, really stressing and urging that we pull the sugar out of the diet. And one thing to look at for parents is when you turn around a box, they always look for the ingredients, like whatever's first is the most. But there are 71 different ways to name sugar right now, and they're growing. And so if you look at something and it's a granola bar and it says oats, and then it says cane sugar, and then it says apple juice concentrate, and then it says maltodextrin, if they put those 3 sugars together, it would actually be before oats. It would be the number one thing in that bar. But food industry knows that parents are starting to catch on to the fact that there's sugar in everything. And so they separate the sugars to have them fall lower on the ingredients list so that they can deceive and sell product. And
Oh my gosh.
and that is part of the business and unfortunate. It could be mouthfeel, it could be a number of reasons, but that is an important thing for parents to recognize. So the book does go through the number of different words that can be named as sugar. If anything has an os in it, that's a lot of times ending that way. We know that that's a sugar, but I think arm yourself with the information so you can start making those choices. And if anything, there are so many amazing food bloggers out there and wellness moms who are making granola bars at home. And I know it's a lot of work, but if you batch it, throw it in your freezer, it makes a difference. And you can get, just like with screens, you can get in the habit. Like, we have an amazing coffee shop where we live. Like, they make homemade almond milk from scratch there. Like, if I want a latte on the weekend, I'm like, yay, I'm going to Bear Coast. They have an amazing variety of muffins and things like that. And we just kind of got in this habit. Every time we went, Sebastian would get a blueberry muffin, and like Chris tried it one day and was like, whoa, babe, like this is way hard. This is dessert, Wow. But it became this trigger, and it's like Pavlov's dog, you know. We walk into the coffee shop, Bash gets a blueberry muffin, and it becomes a habit. So it's like what I tell my clients. If you are triggered by a location in which you go to, we take a break from that location. We create a new habit in a new place, because it's a lot easier to create a new habit than it is to break a habit. Then we distance ourselves from that habit, lower our cravings, and then we revisit it with a plan. Like, I'm going to go back in, and now I'm going to be an iced, if you're getting a sugary frappy, blah, 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 take a break, come back, be the iced green tea girl for a few months. There's going to be a day where you go back and get that frappy whippy thing that you're getting, and then you take a break again. But it's getting into any kind of habit, and then keeping that momentum is a lot easier than breaking something. So I would say create a new habit. So Bash and I was like, we got to do something about this. This is a problem. So we recipe tested the heck out of like blueberry muffins till we found one that he liked, and we make it without any added sugar. It's a banana sweetened base. I mean, fruit does have sugar. It does have sugar, and it does taste sweet, but it's a cellular carbohydrate. Like, those sugars are wrapped up in some banana fiber. It's going to elongate his curve more than using a maple syrup or a honey even will. And there are even recipes on the internet that you can make an entire batch of blueberry muffins with a couple tablespoons of maple syrup versus, I'm sure, the cup of sugar that was added to the batch that we were buying, And every now and then we'll get him one, but for the most part, like, I keep a big box of those frozen blueberry muffins in our freezer. And we're like, all right, who wants to bring a muffin to the coffee shop?
Oh, I love that.
And I'm like,
That's so
on
smart.
board, so.
Or even adding, if you are going to have the carbohydrates, this is a tip I learned from you. If you are going to have the carbohydrates, pair it with protein. So if somebody is out, or you're at a birthday party, or it's a situation where you're like, I gotta have this cupcake.
Yeah.
Pairing it with something like your protein powder, like literally having a shaker cup with you. So at least you're like, okay, protein to stabilize the blood sugar with the carbs.
Yeah.
That's a little hack, right? And even smoothies, if they're really high sugar, because I feel like a lot of the smoothie shops, even in LA and stuff, they say it's super healthy, but it's like 40 grams of sugar, which is insane. Yeah. Adding a scoop of your protein to it. I mean, I just carry your protein around everywhere. It's like in my bag at all times when I travel, because I know, seriously, I tell Mike, he sees how crazy. It's probably a little too crazy about food, but I'm prepared. I'm always prepared for the worst case scenario, because I know who I am when my blood sugar drops and it's not a nice person.
Yeah.
And I get irritable. I can't focus. I'm tired, and I love energy. It's like one of my greatest values is energy. I'm a very high energy person, and I I don't ever want that taken away from me. So maybe it's a little fear-based, but I'm like, I have to have things on me. So I always have like chocolate protein powder or collagen on me when I travel, because if the flight's delayed, I can go get hot water and drink it. And it will taste like a little hot chocolate drink. And at least I can stabilize my blood sugar. So I feel like carrying around a chocolate protein, shameless plug for Kelly, or any brand, is really smart, right?
Yeah.
Just always have on you when you're traveling.
Absolutely. Well, that's why the Fab Four is like the short list of like what are things that support blood sugar balance. So you can pair a carbohydrate with protein. You can pair a carbohydrate with fat. Both of those are going to be a major support in your blood sugar. And they always just say, you know, some people will say, don't eat them alone. Don't eat your carbohydrates naked. Like there's a lot of terms around that. Give it a blanket, you know, like dress up your carbohydrates. I mean, pick the person who's talking about blood sugar. My whole thing was like, just look for your plate, start to count and I do this with my parents too, or packing lunches, for example. I'm like, you don't need to know the macros. Count what it is. All right, let's say you put, you want to make a sandwich for your kid, and then you're picking your lunchbox. So you got 2 pieces of bread, you threw a cookie in there, you gave them some apple, and then you put some olives and some cucumber. So the olives and cucumber, there's some fiber and green things. There's some fat. Maybe you put some turkey on that sandwich. So it's really like, it's more of a spike than it is a flat line. And so you kind of have to just really look at it and weigh the differences out. What is it mostly? And so what would we do to this? We'd look at this and we'd say, well, could we replace those 2 pieces of bread with 1 siete tortilla? It's a coconut flour or an almond flour tortilla that's less of an insulin spike, but gives them that like, ooh, I'm having a wrap vibe. You don't need to put your kids on a low carbohydrate diet. That is not the plan. They are growing. They need all the nutrition and energy, but we do impact their learning, their behavior, and they are very sensitive and vulnerable to crashes. A lot of times behavioral things can be fixed by balancing blood sugar, not in adults, and not just in everybody. So we look at that and I say, try to create that balance on the plate, because even if, you know, it's hit or miss what kids will eat from their lunchbox, you could do that and the kid could just eat the tortilla and the apples. You tried. You just put in the effort, you put the variety on the plate and you try, right? Yeah. But that right there is like a great example of like, look at the lunchbox and say, where's the protein first? Where's the source of fat? Where's some fiber? Where's some greens? And so for me, it's like the middle big box in my kids' lunchbox is always some type of protein. It may be sausage, it may be turkey roll-ups, it may be like, you know, chicken from the night before or like steak. And then I look at 2 other boxes. I have some rinsed chopped veggies and some rinsed and chopped fruit, and Bash actually fills his box. They go, you got to throw some in from veggies, you got to throw some in from fruit, get their buy-in, and they are more likely to eat. So they fill it, and then the little a mini container of like a dip. So it's like a Primal Ranch, or he's not in a nut-free school, so I'm really thankful I can send peanuts, almonds, like peanut butter for an apple dip, or you know, anything like that for them. Yeah. But you kind of look for that balance, and then it's like, okay, and then I'm going to say, how do I am I adding crackers? Or am I adding a wrap? Is he getting a piece of bread here? Are we putting rice in the chicken bowl? What is the carbohydrate source after the Fab Four? Because then I know, okay, I got my bases covered, and he has some nutrients that his body needs to grow, perform, and thrive.
Yes. I'm so glad I know all of this now, because my kids are going to be eating so well. Just all the blood sugar, healthy foods. They're so lucky.
They're going to be crazy.
My future children are already so lucky. You know, I'm going to be like, here's your steak. Here's your avocado. Don't touch that sugar.
Yeah. I mean, it is.
It's probably harder than it sounds.
Personalities change too. I mean, my oldest, it's pretty normal for the oldest to be a little bit more of a people pleaser, follow in their parents, do things with their parents. Bash is that little kid. Toshin is like already his own little human at 20 months old. He goes, no. Like, I don't know. And it's cute. Like, it is his personality. It's definitely, he's given me a run for my money. He's testing the science for me. I didn't know any children that didn't like bananas and blueberries. He refused bananas and blueberries, but it was like 5 or 6 introductions of these foods. And then now he's like, banana. And he pounds blueberries, like doesn't even pick one up at a time. Just fistfuls into the mouth.
I wanted to ask you earlier about if you have strong opinions on the carnivore diet, keto diet, because everything we're talking about is balance, right?
Right.
However, and I don't know the science as well as you do, but you can burn using only fat, correct? Instead of just burning from glucose and sugar. So
Oh yeah. So that's called being metabolically flexible. So you
Yeah.
can be a sugar burner, you can be a fat burner, and you can dip from one to the other.
Okay.
And that's what your body does. Like it will use up glucose, and after it's used up glucose, it will start to dip into your fat stores. And it does that when insulin is low enough to do that. And so when you go carnivore or you are actually in ketosis, I think a lot of people think they're in ketosis,
Right.
but they're not in ketosis. They're in low carb purgatory.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Which is a big difference. I think it's below 20 grams. Is that?
yeah, well, it depends on the person. So someone
Okay.
can get into ketosis at a net 30 grams. Some people have to like go as low as 20. But you can use a breathalyzer, ketometer for blood, or pee strips to figure out if you are actively in ketosis. And you can kind of taste it. Like your breath will change when you're burning fat for fuel. But I would say if someone wants to go hardcore keto or if someone wants to go carnivore, the only clients I've really had take carnivore serious, my clients take carnivore seriously, have been people with major GI issues. I work with half a dozen functional MDs, and we share clients, meaning they're getting a NutriVal, they're getting a GI effect stool test, they are getting a Dutch hormone panel. We are doing a full Quest lab on them, and they're being supplemented with whatever whatever doctor I'm working with sees if there are any suboptimal levels or deficiencies. From there, carnivore can be, and I have had clients who've done it for 2 weeks, 6 weeks. We're really at that point dealing with major IBS, SIBO, issues that are recurrent and problematic for them in their life, meaning it's lowering their quality of life because socially it's hard, emotionally on them, they feel like they're at the end of the rope. It's worth a shot. When we look at removing all prebiotics and fibers, I think there is something to be said about not getting those sources and feeding the microbiome and getting those short chain fatty acids. Because when we think about it, you eat fiber-rich foods, and when you're a carnivore, you've cut those out, right? But if you're eating fiber and prebiotics, your microbes ferment those. They give off butyrate. Butyrate is a short-chain fatty acid. They give off a number of postbiotics, but butyrate's really strong at providing fuel for the epithelial lining and keeping your cells tight. So those tight junctures preventing leaky gut. Now, if you're not feeding those microbes and they're not proliferating and they're not giving off short chain fatty acids, what ends up happening is they start eating the mucin layer. And so you have your probiotic or the microbial layer, you have the mucin, and then you have the epithelial lining. And you start to degrade the mucin layer, then you're starting to access the epithelial lining and that protective covering is gone. So there are definitely pros and cons. Say someone's issues are related to some form of dysbiosis and overgrowth of bad bacteria. Maybe they're dealing with a stubborn plant-based virus. Like Viome is an amazing gut test that will tell you if you have any active plant-based viruses in your gut that can disrupt your epithelial lining and cause major GI issues. Removing those plants allows for those viruses, that virus to no longer be a problem for you. Yeah. So there are definitely pros and cons to it. I would say short term is probably my recommendation if you're being really strict. But I have a client right now that's been on it now for over a year. His blood tests do look great and he feels amazing. And there's something to be said about that because we're looking at a decade history of major debilitating GI side effects that prevented him from being at social gatherings. Yeah. So that's more important, I think, for his life.
It can definitely be overwhelming because, for me, I've gone through autoimmune issues and gut issues, unfortunately, like so many people nowadays. And I read The Plant Paradox. That had me convinced that if I eat lettuce that I'm going to die. And then you hear about carnivore diet, how it's great. Then you hear carnivore diet, how it's terrible. It feels a little bit intimidating. I'm not going to lie. And it's tough to know kind of where to start.
Yeah. Well, remember that everyone who is writing a diet book, of any kind, they'll take research and they'll run with it in their clinical practice, and it may work for them. And then they want to tell that story.
Confirmation bias.
You also have people who get excited about research, or researchers who do the research and then they want to share that research, and they're sharing it in a, this is how you apply it to your life kind of way. I will say, because I've loved health and nutrition for so long, and I think I started reading diet books in it was maybe my junior or senior year of high school, like Atkins and these books, that I read the same. A lot of it gets recycled over and over and over again. I think the new science is really microbiome based and gut lining based, and leaky gut and all of that. It's really, really interesting. But you know yourself the best, and there's nothing wrong with trial and error. When a client comes to me and says, I know you love blood sugar balance and the Fab4, I want to go carnivore, I think that that's important for you to explore and see, try it on. How does it feel? What's the takeaway for you? Is it just that you need more red meat? Is it just that you need more protein? Or is it truly that this has made you feel 10 times better? And that you'll only know that if you try carnivore for a specific period of time, take it seriously, and then reintroduce some foods and say, okay, I'm eating the same level of protein I was eating on carnivore, but now I'm adding some egg yolks and fruit, and I'm actually adding some cruciferous vegetables. Okay, how does that feel to me? And write those things down too. Like, to keep a journal of how you're feeling, because a lot of times we can take things away from all these little diets that we try, or books that we read. You take your little tools out of it. Like, read the Bulletproof Coffee Diet. Someone might say, oh, I really like a bulletproof coffee, or I find that this cooking method works best for me. And you take those into your life, and you take what works and leave what doesn't.
That's the best answer to that, because I think a lot of people would say, oh, this is the one way to eat. And we are all so different. And there's also different seasons of our life too, right? Where if we're under a lot of stress, we might not be able to eat what we were able to eat when we were relaxed on vacation and our cortisol levels were down. I feel like I'm able to assimilate food differently based on how stressed I am in life. Totally. Like, sometimes I can handle carbs and sometimes I can't. And it's very interesting. But what I have noticed about me, and I'm curious because I know you love levels, is when I put levels on, I did the blood sugar test. I only did it for like a week. I should have done it longer. I need to do it again for sure. I noticed that pretty much any grains, it's like game over. And I guess it was frustrating. It was great to learn, but it made me mad and jealous of people who are able to wake up and have a bowl of oatmeal, and then they can have a ton of rice at lunch, and then they can have their brown rice pasta. And I'm like, how are they able to do that? And for me, I literally am so insulin sensitive to the point where I feel like I want to fall asleep if I have it. And so then I wonder, is something wrong with me? Is my insulin sensitivity a bad thing, or is that actually just a sensitive body and I work better on low carb? It was so interesting.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there's two things we need to talk about. One, a glucose excursion, like you going up really high and coming back down. I mean, people are we can demonize that because over and over and over again, it is hard on your body. It does make you tired. It does deplete your energy. It does increase your cravings. It does mess with your sleep. Like, it does increase your chances of chronic lifestyle diseases. But you say not having a moderate amount of carbohydrates, caring about your blood sugar balance, breaking your fast, starting your day with a protein-rich meal, not eating a lot of sugar late night and going to bed with, elevated blood sugar. Like, there are certain things that you could do every day to like kind of keep yourself pretty balanced, right? But then to say on a weekend, be like, I do feel like having dessert and I'm having this, I think about this coconut milk ice cream sandwich this place sells, it's to die for, and I will like knowingly make the decision that I'm going to have this, know that I'm going to come up, know that my body has the capability of bringing it down, but I'm not going to do that before I'm walking into a podcast interview where I need to use my brain. It's more of like, it's an afternoon, we finished up the beach, it's this beach shack that sells this ice cream sandwich, my kids want to try a popsicle, okay, we're going to do that, we're making the choice, and it's okay that I'm going to have that excursion and kind of come down from energy, like energetically. So we don't need to flatline. It's like when people say, lower carbohydrates or more cellular carbohydrates, more whole food carbohydrates are better than no carbohydrates is best. The same with glucose. It's normal to go up. There's a normal range. Like we maintain our own homeostasis. Like our body does that for us. We have the hormones to do that. We have the capability of doing that. So never say like going up and crashing down is always bad and always a problem. What I heard you say though was, it makes me tired. I wish I could enjoy those more. There are a lot of people that don't know how good they can feel. There are a lot of people that are constantly eating that way, and they are making themselves feel better by coming back up. They're not aware. You've been in the health and wellness world for a long time. You're very in tune with your body. You like biohacking. It's very exciting for you. Like you are immersed in it. So you're taking note of how things make you feel. There are a lot of people that are outsourcing how they feel. They're outsourcing the recommendations of how they should be eating. They see someone eat, whatever, their brown rice pasta and make this cool meal, and they're making a meal and they're making it out of whole foods. I commend that because they're making their meals at home and they're not driving through someplace to get it. That is already the biggest step you can take towards improving your health. If someone wants to improve their health and they want one like lever to pull, make your own food. Even if it's super carbohydrate dense and you're on a blood sugar roller coaster, that is going to be better for you than processed, prepackaged style foods. And so that's awesome. But a lot of people aren't taking a minute to say, how does this food really affect me? Does it make me tired? Do I have feel like I'm in a fog or a food coma? If you pull back enough, like you have in the past, whether you try a, less processed diet or you are leaning carnivore, you've tried to become metabolically flexible and you tried keto or you tried fasting, the minute you try those things and you know what it feels like to be fat adapted, to burn fat for fuel, to not have those crashes in energy, to really not be dependent on the food that you're eating to feel fueled and ready to go, that's a really powerful feeling. Then you really notice the undulations in how food affects you.
It's like higher sensitivity.
So much higher.
It's like a good problem, but I think it's bad, but it's actually a good thing.
Yeah. And so I actually would say when we look at some of the research of protein dense meals, breakfast and lunch being more important than dinner in our ability to assimilate that protein into muscle mass and to use it. So if you were like, hey, I do feel like I want that rice or that pasta, even though it's closer to bedtime and you may go to sleep with a little bit of an elevated blood sugar curve, I would say dinner is the best time to have that because it is good for sleep. And if it is going to be have a calming effect on you and you're having it with protein and fat and like say having a bolognese or something on pasta, like that'd be like a great time to have it. You're going to you have a few hours before you go to bed, but you're going to roll into sleep and you're not needing to be whip smart at that hour to produce a post or create something.
Yeah, it is interesting that I notice when I eat more frequently, I feel more tired.
Oh yeah.
So it is an interesting habit that I'll get into where psychologically I'm hungry for something because I'm bored or I'm avoiding something or I'm procrastinating. So I go into the cabinet and I'm like, ooh, I'll have this. And I look at the days where I ate very frequently and I actually felt worse than the days where I was really busy and I didn't eat as much. Mm-hmm. I'm like, it really is interesting when you have to tune in and decipher or to feel the difference between physical hunger versus psychologically hungry and bored. It's crazy because you're like, shoot, I'm actually not physically hungry right now. I don't need food, but I want something.
Yeah.
That means you're dehydrated. I've heard that before
Oh,
very
yeah.
often.
Tell us about electrolytes. You love electrolytes,
I
right?
love Element. I had one on the way here because I actually now can't imagine taping a podcast without Element.
Wow.
For my own podcast or anyone else's. It's energizing. Electrolytes are energizing to me personally because I do feel hydrated and I've had clients tell me their brain feels like it's on fire, but it's different when you have proper hydration. I know, brain functioning, and you guys had hydration expert on the show, right? They probably even know more than I do when it comes to this, but our ability to just think and feel our best is totally impacted by hydration. And I mean, I'm a big proponent of blood sugar too. So I'd rather not have a big meal leading into a podcast or leading into a time when I need to publicly speak or do anything like that. So, yeah, I love Element though. Shout out to them because I think a lot of people think electrolytes, and there's some on the market that are loaded with sugar.
Yeah.
And that is a blood sugar roller coaster waiting to happen. Like a Gatorade and like some of the other powdered ones that do come with a lot of sugar. So definitely look for it.
I'm curious, what is this hack with, I was telling Mike that he can add your protein to coffee in the morning so he's not just doing caffeine right away without stabilizing it with some protein for his blood sugar. I feel like it's delicious because it's like a chocolatey, warm, hot cacao feel, but yeah.
That's great. Well, I'm glad you brought that up though, because my first instinct when you said that was I'm trying to fast or do intermittent fasting, and I don't think we really
you can't add
about
protein
that.
for intermittent fasting.
Exactly.
It's got to be like 5 calories or less.
Okay.
I have people that are really sensitive to caffeine, and when you have caffeine, you have a surge of adrenaline and cortisol that mobilizes glycogen from your liver, breaks it down to glucose, and dumps it in your bloodstream. So you didn't eat anything, but all of a sudden you're getting a little blip of blood sugar.
Okay.
And then insulin's released, and then you crash. And I have clients who get a major spike in blood sugar after 1 cup. I have clients who they're cool with 1 cup. They take their 2nd cup, and all of a sudden they're sweating, their heart's a little bit racing, and their blood sugar goes up. And then they crash, and that's when they make poor choices. They just drank coffee and tried to power through, and then all of a sudden they're depleted with energy, and they need food immediately. And then we say, okay, would it actually make more sense for you to have a smoothie and your coffee at the same time, have your eggs and your coffee at the same time, mix in a little protein, because I know you want to intermittent fast, but your coffee is actually backfiring into poor food choices.
And it goes back to what I was talking about earlier about feeling overwhelmed. And I think I started intermittent fasting because I actually did the Prolon before.
Dr. Walter Longo out of USC.
Longo. Big fan, read the book, Dr. David Sinclair, been listening to him for a long time. There's obviously data to support intermittent fasting in terms of like lengthening telomeres and helping with regeneration and everything. But guy like me, I take it way too hard, right? Or I take it maybe way too literal, or I go overboard on it. So I've been having those issues to where I'm trying to intermittent fast, but I do notice I'm drinking too much coffee, and then I crash, then I make bad decisions, and it's like this whole loop that I'm doing. So I'm glad you said that. That's something interesting I need to think about.
Yeah, you can always get the benefits of intermittent fasting by fasting at night. And some people feel like, ooh, that's a lot harder because I'd rather get up and not eat and have some coffee and wait, and then I can have a short window, say between noon and 6 or 1 or 2 and 8. And like, that's an easier window for me. But I've actually had more body composition success with clients, and even like sleep success, mood success with shrinking the feeding window in the daylight hours and adjusting it. Say we're eating at 9 or 10 to 5 or 6, and we're not being as drastic, but we're being more consistent over time. And so consistency will always outpace any like quick fix short-term diet. I'd rather have someone take something for the long term. So how can we take what's working, what's not? And maybe you're in a time where you're just in the habit of over drinking caffeine, which caffeine is my favorite drug.
Same.
I love coffee to the point where every July it's my birthday and I have to take the entire month off of coffee because I know I'll get to this place where I'll have a cup, then I'll pour another half cup, and then it'll be like the 1 o'clock hour and I'm like, I want another one. And so I have to pull the ripcord and I take the month off. And like now, we're just September 1st and I just had a cup of coffee today. One cup. And I have it black. Like I go from fun and all the tinctures and adaptogens and whipping it and having multiple a day to being like, whoo, take a break. It's kind of like dryuary for people who don't drink in January and then drink less throughout the year, because I can really get back to baseline with it. And then I've replaced it all of July. Like it's not that I don't drink caffeine. I'll have matcha and then I'll do like a bone broth fun drink or, turmeric latte or something, I try to find the cacao. You find the other things that you like.
Yeah.
But then when August rolls around and I bring back coffee, sometimes I'm like, do I really even like it? Yes, I do, but I keep it to a cup, and it's not as fancy as it is, and it'll work its way back up through the holidays, and then and I don't think that's every year it changes a little bit, but I look at that as not as a failure at all, because what I've seen in the last decade of working with real clients and not, I might not have lab experience, but I have like client experience, and I think I know people pretty well at this point, and I am a regular kid who grew up on like frosted animal cookies, and now I'm like trying to get my kids to eat produce, right? But I will say there is something about getting back up, like recommitting, getting excited, feeling passionate, and finding something new to like stay in the groove. I think people will, if it's yo-yo diet after yo-yo diet after yo-yo diet, that can, and failing at that will feel like a failure. But what you're doing, reading a researcher's book, getting excited about the science, learning something on your podcast, you're remotivating. You're remotivating. You're getting you're getting excited about something. You're bringing new things into your home, trying new recipes. That's how people stay excited about health. And so I am really hopeful that there's more and more opportunities for people to learn about how to take care of themselves. And it's all that repetition that gets you to a place where you're like, okay, this isn't black or white. I don't have to live and die by this, but what's going to work for me?
What did you eat today? I'm curious.
Yeah. So I woke up this morning.
Pop
I woke up
quiz.
this morning. I had a black coffee.
Okay.
I dropped my kid off at school. I drove home. I made a smoothie. I taped a podcast.
Fab 4 smoothie?
I made a Fab 4 smoothie. So my protein powder. Today I used chocolate. I only had frozen blueberries in my freezer. I do like a blackberry right now, but I didn't have it. But chocolate, blueberries, a tablespoon. I have a nut butter with Wild Friends. It's like a macadamia almond coconut blend, smooth. So a tablespoon of that. I had a tablespoon of chia in there, a little handful of spinach. So that's like kind of like a basic Fab 4 smoothie. Blended that guy up. And then on the way here, I didn't, we had a 1:00 tape time. I had my smoothie at like 9:30, 10. I can't eat before. Like I couldn't sit down. There wouldn't be words. I'd be like, I'm digesting my food. All the blood is down there. So I had 2 chopsticks from, the beef sticks and a pack of olives from Thrive Market and a big thing of Element. Wow. So I had my electrolytes. And then I am going to the fermentation farm after this. I already know where I'm getting my lunch. I'll probably they have this grass-fed chili that's to die for. That place is amazing. They have a wild tuna melt that is on like everything is like the most garlicky sauerkraut you've ever tasted. It's so delicious. But they have amazing fermented food there. So it's really good.
Yeah. And then what will you have for dinner?
So I have to see. I have like some frozen salmon in my freezer right now. So that's kind of the thing. Like I think people think that I like meal plan. Yeah. I just keep frozen proteins in my freezer and fridge, and I always have stuff to make tacos. I always have stuff to make like a lentil pasta for my kids, and I grate a bunch of veggies into the sauce. I'm always prepared to just make a protein and veggies. So we get kind of, I don't say that we're boring, but I have a tahini sauce that I got in my fridge right now. So I know I always have like either a dressing or a dip or pesto, that kind of a thing. So it's like if I have a good dip and I have a protein and some veggies, that's pretty much how we roll. Yeah. Real simple.
That's good. So you basically are, you're just eating for blood sugar. That's the rule. It's like, how can I optimize each meal?
Yeah. And like when it comes to snacking, like that's the stuff where I think people will mostly reach for things that are sugar based, and that can really derail people. I love beef sticks. I love hard-boiled eggs. I love, olive packs and things like that. So those are a handful of nuts. Those are like my go-tos.
Yeah. Ooh.
So one thing we've been asking everybody, the show is going to be called The Best Medicine.
Okay.
And that's one thing we've been asking every single guest. And surprisingly, we've been getting very different answers, funny answers, weird. But we've been asking every single guest what they feel like the best medicine is. And the way we kind of describe that is the best medicine is something that maybe got you through a hard time, or maybe something that you live by, something you help other people with. It could be whatever for you. You don't have to take it very literal, but for you, what do you feel like is your best medicine?
So a couple of things came to mind. I would say my best medicine right now are beach days with my boys. And we talked about this before the podcast, but I have to get my feet in the sand. We did decide to move out of like LA proper to Southern California, Orange County, and to be close to the beach and to be able to go to the beach instead of a park. And when my workday is done and I've done the emails and the Zoom calls and the podcast or whatever, and I've been sitting or on my computer, to walk the hill down to our beach, to like see the horizon, to listen to the waves, to play. I don't take my phone. Like, I do ask Chris to take pictures because I do. Can I borrow your phone and take a picture? But I don't want to work call or an email. Yeah. Like, I need to be in nature. It's totally calming to my central, to my nervous system and to my soul. Like, to really be present with my boys, because I do have a lot of responsibilities. Like, I'm the income and the breadwinner, the only in my family. So like, I have to work quite a lot, and so to really be present and to know like I gave them my all and was right there in the sand having fun, like that's my best medicine right now. Let's say when I lived in LA, like a really nice yoga, pre-kids, like a really nice yoga class with like bump and beats when everyone was singing and dancing, and then you do your shavasana and you're like, there may be a tear. It's okay.
Do you still do hot yoga?
I do. Yeah. Well, now I'm back at it down here. I will say the studios in LA were a lot more fun, but yeah, it's I'm finding my people.
I love that answer. I'm waiting for the day where somebody's like, Tylenol. Like, no, that's not what we meant. Okay.
Edit that out.
You're like, Vidal.
You're going to have someone on here who's like microdosing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get that for sure. We're going to do some psychedelic episodes for sure.
We want to dive into that too.
I'm curious to close it out because I know a lot of moms listening are so curious. And this is the question that there is no one answer, and I don't even know if the word balance exists. I don't know. But how are you doing so many different things right now and keeping your sanity? Because as somebody who aspires to do that, it's really fascinating when women are able to work and be an awesome mom and also be a wife and still sleep and have a life and remember to eat and balance my blood sugar. I got a lot of to-dos.
Yeah. Well, I really feel like, unfortunately, the internet is a place that makes our to-do list longer. Oh, we're going to take a cold shower and then or like a ice plunge, and then we're going to sauna, and then we're going to do this with our face mask, and then we're going to meal prep this way, and we're going to sign our kids up for this. And the minute you add humans to your family, you add longer to-do lists. And so for me, I had to reframe good. Like, what's good for me? Like, good for me looks like X number of workouts a week. What's the length of those workouts? How do I negotiate time for my husband? So I go like, okay, I get these 2 yoga classes out of the house and I have a Peloton at home if I need to do something. But I got like a micro scooter that's my size. So I will scoot a cul-de-sac with the best of the toddlers to call it a workout. Like,
I'm coming over.
Like you figure it out, right? So the non-negotiables for me really are the meals that I enjoy making for my family, a few workouts that I feel like really made me sweat and made me sore, like get the biggest bang for my buck. And I am not, the laundry list of other things that I would say, like, I can't tell you the last time I got my nails done. Like, there are things that I don't care about as much and have decided I'd rather, and you just get your priorities, like get with your partner, sit down and say, when you think about having a family, like what's most important? Like for me, it's family dinners, it's experiences and trips outside in nature for my family and my kids. And for me personally, I want to move my body. Like I want to move my body. I want to be with my husband. Like I have little things, that are just super important to me. And there are things that I like checking off my list. Like when people, are people that care about keeping up with fashion. Like I'm definitely not that person. So I can check that off my list and not care. I can check the nails off my list and not care. Some people might really love that. They have fun with nail art. That's important to them. Great. Like you pick what's important to you. Just prioritize your things, whatever it is for you, and then make decisions based on making time for those things, and it works. But you will always feel like a failure as a mom. Like in some aspect, you're like, I'm killing it as a mom. My business is in shambles. My business is doing great. My kids don't know my name. You know, like it's just, you have to, just like blood sugar, it's not stable. It's not stagnant. Like it's up and down. And when you feel like something is out of balance, if you're checking in with yourself, you'll pull it back into balance. If you feel like you're working too much, you'll go, ooh, I'm going to say no to these few events and I'll bring it back into balance, just like you do now. Like if you're out and traveling a lot and working a lot and you finally feel like you're working too hard or too much, what do? You cancel some things off your calendar and you pull back and you take a vacation, or you block some things, or you tell someone, help hold me accountable so we're not overscheduling. I'm overscheduled. This feels like overscheduling. And so that's all it is. It's not, there's not some magic formula for this. It's just knowing yourself and checking in.
Redefining good. That's really good. That's like a book title.
Yeah.
Because it is hard when you scroll social media, especially in the boss babe, girl boss mom space, right? It's like, hi, I'm Cindy. I have a 9-figure business. I have 9 kids and I'm ripped and my husband is perfect and he's a supermodel. Click below for my offer. And you're just like, you like just woke up and you're like, oh shit, how does she have a 6-pack and she's married to this supermodel and all of her kids are matching and she's like a boss babe, and you're like, she must have 8 toes or something, you know, something's wrong with her. She's got bunions, right? Like, come on, like something, because you just, I don't know, not to say we can't all have a beautiful life that has abundance in all of these areas, but it's just funny. The internet makes it worse for sure. The comparisonitis.
Yeah. I mean, my kids are in hand-me-downs that have stains, but I'm also not prioritizing. That's not a value for me. It's really cute when my kids match. Man, is it cute. I wish I was like on the internet buying them clothes that they matched every day. But the reality is that if they matched, it's because I got 2 of the same shirt at Target and they just happened to both be clean on that day, you know? But I also think, again, it's like, what are you going to prioritize? Like, what is most important to you? And for me, it's like, I don't know. It's like being outside. It's playing and being messy and dirty. And we're not going to do that in matching outfits.
Yeah. I'm also curious, supplements that you love, maybe your top 3 that you always have on you, or for the listener who's just now wanting to get into blood sugar management and just being healthier. Yeah. What are your 3 favorites in addition to your protein?
Okay. Yeah. So I have to give a shout out to Seed Probiotic.
I haven't tried it yet.
It is phenomenal. Like I've had clients, they have some amazing research behind it. And I've had clients with major GI distress, chronic constipation for years. It even, you know, they show that it can improve a cholesterol ratio because it increases the quantity and consistency of bowels, supports the gut lining, like really probably in the last 10 years of like recommending supplements, it's one where time and time again, clients are like, wow, that I actually, like, does it work? They feel like it works. And I think that that's a major benefit. And I've noticed that myself personally. I take prenatal right now. I love their formulation. It is, just a multi. When I'm not taking that, I'm taking like Thorne 2 a day. I'm just like a basics kind of person. And then I take, right now I'm taking the omega-3 from Mind Body Green. I like their formulator and that product. And I also really like their Sleep Plus, which is a magnesium and GABA, and you take that at night.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
And then Element.
And then I have a D3 K2 dropper. But I will say, post pregnancies and breastfeeding, I just did like my full panels with my functional ND and was not surprised, but also surprised that plant-based antioxidants were low, omega-3 was low, and I had 2 plastics in my blood. So, and I'm someone who is really trying to be diligent with glass, stainless steel, but but it's omnipresent. It's everywhere. Like it's really hard to avoid a lot of this stuff. So I did add AG1. I do feel like it's, and I was really no offense to them, I was really anti because they had a big marketing budget, and I feel like everyone's like promoting it. But I had a researcher from UCLA that used a greens powder like AG1 in a study, and it showed benefits. So I'm trying that right now, and I'm going to do another NutriVal in about 4 weeks to see where it goes.
Yeah. I just got it too. I haven't done seed yet though. I need to try seed. I've heard about it everywhere. And then Element, right, would be your last one.
Oh yeah. I have Element like every single day.
Yeah,
I don't think of it as a supplement, like the stuff that I pour, like my protein, AG1 or Element. I don't really think of it that way. I'm like, I just drink it. That's not a supplement.
Yeah. And then your protein to close it out. It's delicious. I'm obsessed with it. I wasn't paid to say this, but it is truly the best protein. It's so clean. It tastes so good. And you somehow took beef and monk fruit and it doesn't taste like butt. Like I don't know how you did it. Like how did you do that?
Yeah, thanks.
It's so delicious.
It is. I'm really proud of it. But I also feel like I have a little bit of a marketing and selling advantage because I've been drinking everyone else's protein powder for so many years. Yeah. Like 2007 or 8 is when I first personally started got into making smoothies. So I've been drinking a lot of protein powder for a long time. I just wanted minimal ingredients to make a whole food shake. And it's grass-fed beef isolate, which is a chemical-free collagen, but it's also a complete protein because it's fleshy bones. We stew it like bone broth, skim the fat, dehydrate the water. So there's no petroleum-based solvents, enzymes, nothing, no chemical processing at all. Wow. So I'm stoked on that because I can make a smoothie and be like, here, baby tea, mommy. I could be breastfeeding, pregnant. I feel totally comfortable drinking it. It's food grade,
It's delicious.
Thanks.
It's just phenomenal. And it's really hard to find protein powders that aren't super processed and have all of this added shit to it. Mm-hmm. And it's really nice to have one that I feel like won't spike my blood sugar because a lot of times a lot of them have a lot of carbs in them too. They add like oat bran or whatever. And it's like, no, I just wanted protein.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have sexy new packaging too.
Thanks.
It looks good.
Thanks.
It looks really
I'm
good.
really excited about the branding. Yeah. It's been it was a long process. I got to give a shout out to Katie Forner's team, Forner Studio. They did a great job. It's a full update, and I'm really hopeful. I think vegan is still on its way, and it looks like it'll be out in September. So
that's exciting.
I'm really thankful.
And then meat brands, are there a few that you love right now, like Force of Nature or?
Yes.
Because it's hard to find high quality meat. I feel like you have to kind of go the extra mile to either order it online or find it at places.
Yeah. And back in the day, I was so resistant to like getting meat delivered to my house. Like I did Butcher Box at my apartment in LA a couple of times, and it was like hot when it got to my house. But then I did get on board, and I was actually with Butcher Box and getting their boxes for like 3 or 4 years. And then interviewed Robbie, the founder of Force of Nature, learned a lot more about regenerative farming, went to the regenerative farming conference.
Wow.
Like the nerd that I am. No.
Right, that's when we hung out.
I'm going to be an Aggie next to go back to school.
No Burning Man this year for me. I'm going to the regenerative
farming conference. So I did meet some amazing farmers at the regenerative farming conference. I do get a box of proteins from Force of Nature every month. I really recommend their ancestral blend, especially because I've never been able to get consistent with organ meats, and they mix in, 10 to 20% of the ground beef pound is all organ meats. So really super easy to make burgers and get that, all those high quality minerals and fat soluble vitamins into your diet and get consistent. Like there were times where I would get a liver and be like, okay, I cut it up and add it to my ground beef. And then I'd try to do it on my counter and I'd be like, I can't do it.
Or adding it to a smoothie. Have you done this where you freeze the liver and then you chunk it up and then you throw it in the smoothie? And if you do a little bit too much,
it's
not a good experience.
Yeah. No, thank you. So I think it's probably easier get the liver, freeze it, chop it, and just swallow it like a pill.
Probably. I should have done that.
But love that. Pasture Bird. If you're looking for a really high quality like pasture raised chicken, They have a better like omega profile in their meat, actually, of like just lower in 6 and 9 and higher in omega-3 based on what those chickens eat. I really like Thrive Market pork. They have a regenerative pork farm that is their pork farm for Thrive Market. And I also do get frozen wild salmon from Thrive now. Vital Choice is great for fish, but I was all over the place. So now I'm like, okay, Pasture Bird and Force of Nature for beef and chicken, and that's the majority of what we eat. And then I do like Thrive delivery of all kinds of stuff. So I'll add salmon to that, or I'll add pork to that. Like if I want to make carnitas or something for the fam.
I have like 20 tabs open now. I'm just
You're like, all right.
shopping list.
Yeah.
I've sent you this. It's in Austin.
Yeah,
It's local.
Absolutely.
It's
I met
delicious.
the guys too. It was just a great reminder to kind of reorder.
Yeah, because you get your organs in without tasting them, and we need to be eating nose to tail. So it's phenomenal. I do the ancestral blend like every day. I don't know if that's too much, but
I would just do a NutriVal and see where your fat soluble vitamins are.
I would take it easy.
No.
Am I eating
Chill
too
out.
much of the organ blend?
I mean, there are people that do that all the time. I just, I'm probably like once to twice a week for us.
All right, I'll chill a little bit, or maybe it's fine and my body loves it. I mean, I feel fine. So
If you feel good, I think
Yeah.
you're fine.
I mean, I feel like we all need more organ meats, you know? And if it's a little bit in each one, throughout the week, I probably only got still not like an entire
Yeah, you're not
slab of
eating
liver
a
yet,
whole
right?
organ. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh,
no,
man.
it's nice that it's food grade nutrients, which is really awesome.
Where can everyone find you, learn more about you, the protein levels, all of your favorite products, all of the things?
Yeah. BeWellByKelly.com. Or on Instagram. My books are Body Love and Body Love Every Day. And the protein's on the site. I have courses for pregnancy, for kids, for if you just want to learn how to make a blood sugar balancing smoothie that isn't full of sugar. I have a mini course that we're going to start adding. You can add to your protein order for $10. So we're going to try and like get people the education they need to support their lifestyle.
So
Love
good.
it.
Kelly, you're just awesome. I love chatting with you.
I love you too.
I just never want to stop. I'm like, I don't care how long this is. Kelly's just so good. Isn't she amazing?
No, this was incredible. Ton of awesome takeaways. I learned a lot.
One of my
This is a lot
favorite
of
Kelly.
humans.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Woo!
This was fun.
Let's go to the beach.
All right. I'm down.